It's been a long week, right? Are you ready to wind down? Why not? It's time for the Wine Time Fridays podcast with Shelley and Phil. Neither are sommeliers, but both have a deep passion for life, each other, and of course, delicious wine. And now, here to talk about this week over a glass of wine is Shelley and Phil. It's wine time.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Wine Time Fridays with Shelley and Phil and a guest. We haven't had one for a couple weeks. So, and a guest on this Friday, July 19th, episode 222. Shelley, happy Friday. It's wine time.
It's wine time. Happy Friday.
Whenever I have a guest on, Shelley is very shy about ringing that bell.
It's a long story.
It's a long story that most of our listeners are getting tired of hearing. Hey, I want to ask real quick before we introduce our guests from Massican. There was a show back in the late 60s, early 70s, set a fictional high school, Walt Whitman High. Do either of you guys know that show?
Room 222.
That's right. Are you looking at my notes?
No?
Dan, are you old enough to know that show?
No, I don't think so. What was
No,
the show?
we're relics. It was a show that was kind of had the idealistic American history teacher and the life and times of high school, yada yada yada. But episode 222.
It wasn't Welcome Back, Cotter?
Well, it was
It's kind of
probably
like
right around there. Yeah. Well, Welcome Back, Cotter was a group of misfits. Yeah.
Aren't we all?
Of course, exactly. We do have the sister of Mr. John Travolta living here in Coeur d'Alene. Sisters, I should say.
Sisters,
and
too.
niece.
Yep.
Yeah. We digress. We would like to introduce all the way from Napa, Dan Petroski from Massican. Dan, welcome to Wine Time Fridays.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you both for having me. Excited to chat with you. It's Friday and it's a little later on your side, so hopefully you got those wines open and ready to drink.
Well, here's the funny thing.
It's not later.
And
we're
we
in northern Idaho.
Yeah,
It's
we're in
the
northern
same
Idaho.
as California.
Oh,
Yep.
no.
Yep.
I thought you were Central
Southern
Time.
Idaho is different.
Oh, we're Pacific. You're Pacific. Down in Southern, it's Mountain, which is just weird having two time zones in the same state. That's how odd we are. I wanted to just at the very beginning, before we start opening these wines, we had the opportunity of trying Massican probably 3 years ago now, maybe 2 years ago.
I think 2 years ago.
Through Cuvée Collective and their NFT program, which kind of got put on the back burner because I don't think the wine industry was really quite ready for the whole NFT thing. And so they've kind of pivoted a little bit. However, we got to experience these wines from Massican, and both Shelley and I are like, these are fantastic. Wait a minute. White wines in Napa? What are you thinking? And to be a trailblazer like that, where it's either Chardonnay, Cabernet Sauvignon, Merlot, the three biggies in Napa, Sonoma, things like that, you're going with, well, let's just say this. Tokai.
The Tokai has a second name.
Yeah, I know, but it wasn't in the notes. Ribolla, Greco, Falangina. By the way, we've had.
We probably should let.
Well, I'm setting him up.
Oh, okay.
Fiano Cortesi, and I have a couple more I'm going to ask him about later. But what in the world, Dan? How did you get started with? I'm going to open a bottle of wine here, but how did you get started with this idea and model of these varietals, Napa Valley?
Well, it wasn't that hard because we were very fortunate here in California to have an amazing, migrant immigrant population that came over during the gold rush, whether they were Germans or Italians or Spanish or French. And when they didn't find gold, they did what they knew how to do best, which was agriculture. And California became this agricultural wonderland with a diversity of not only grape varieties, but agricultural products. And with that, we, prior to the Prohibition, there was a lot more diversity of grape varieties in California. And then post-Prohibition, you had the World War II, and people were, kind of drinking again. And then when the GIs came back, they came back with a flair and a taste for different things. So the grape varieties I'm working with, like that Tokai Friulano that's in Ania, that's a 78-year-old vineyard. Those are we were kind of positioned at the time of the New California book that came out with John Bonet, who was the wine writer from the San Francisco Chronicle, and he talked about the new guard of California winemaking, and Massican was one of those wineries. But I was working from grape varieties that have been around for a lot longer than a lot of Cabernet in Napa Valley. So we we want to believe that it's new and it's weird. It's just that the Napa Valley wine industry has found a balance towards making really great, exceptional Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot and Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc. And Massican does those things. Massican makes Sauvignon Blanc, makes Chardonnay. I just happen to make, 9 other Italian white grape varieties that were, already kind of in the ethos or the DNA of the grape growing in not only in Napa, but also Sonoma, Mendocino County, Lodi, and throughout the state of California.
But you had been over in Italy working in a vineyard, right?
That is correct. And that was the reason why these wines exist, is solely because of that experience living and working in Sicily for a year. Because when we got off of work or when we were hanging out, we drank nothing but white wines. You're an island in the Mediterranean, and you have a Mediterranean climate, and it's perfect for salty, fresh, floral white wines. And in that, I came back to America, started working in Sonoma County and then in Napa Valley, and making Cabernet Sauvignon for 15 years at Larkmead Vineyards. But I was like drinking a lot of Cabernet, drinking a lot of Merlot, drinking a lot of very heavy, rich Chardonnay from Sonoma, very big, heavy, powerful Pinot Noirs as well. And I was like, well, why aren't we drinking, the wines like I was drinking when I was living in Italy, which this climate here is like almost identical.
Hallelujah.
And so I was like, okay, let me kind of think about that. And so I started, I was able to source a couple of these grape varieties through friends and finding them in some obscure places. They're very rare in the state of California, not just in Napa Valley. And it just became a really small project of, hey, if I want to drink it, maybe there's a couple other people that want to drink it as well. Well, that actually got a little, it was not just a small group of people. A lot of people wanted to drink it. So it took a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for? A lot of patience on my part. It took a lot of desire to not overwork myself. It took a lot of this, I wanted it to be a fun side passion project. And so I never had to make too much that I couldn't sell it. So I needed to make sure that there was no stress involved in making this wine a reality. So I kept it at a very low production level for a number of years, for about 10 years. And then I started to realize this is a thing. People want this, and we need this in the community of wine and food and restaurants. So that's when I started to realize I had to grow, I had to scale, and eventually I had to find a partner.
So we just opened speaking of
Ania
2023 Ania from Massican.
Massican.
Excuse me, my bad. $32 from the winery, and we'll put that right here. We're going to do a quick toast. Dan has got a tasting coming up, so he's going to allow us to do the tasting for him. To health, wealth, and abundance, gratitude, romance,
And peace on earth.
beautiful.
Loud.
By the way,
Cheers.
we are having this in a Andrea Robinson, the one wine glass, the one white wine glass. Andrea down in Napa, probably Dan's neighbor of some sort. These are glasses we use every day, not the white ones. We usually use the red ones every day, but since this is a white lineup, I'm like, let's break out the white ones. So we love these glasses. I will say I had something that I wanted to bring up, and now I forget what it is.
So I'll ask. So you described the wines as fresh, bright, and salty, which I had never thought to as a wine is salty, but when you look for it, it's definitely there.
I think you'll see that a little bit more in Gemina. Gemina as a blend of Greco and Falangina and a little bit of Fiano, that tends to be I would say a little bit more briny. When I think of salt, I think of the sea foam type characteristics of the acidity as it kind of plays on your mouth. Ania's and you'll see that more as you get into Gemina and Pinot Grigio. Ania tends to be a little bit more of a viscous wine, has a little bit more a kind of weight on the palate. Even though it's very low alcohol wine, it doesn't have a lot of acidity. You find the acid in the bitterness in the grapes. So I think I look for like that refreshing bitterness. So I always talk about Ania as like a very horizontal wine. It has this beautiful way of just like painting the sides of your palate, just slowly dripping down and then coming to a kind of a bitter close. And that is like that kind of refreshing characteristic. And some of it has a little bit of that kind of Adriatic, because Tokai and Ribolla are from Italy's northeast, about an hour north of Venice on the Slovenian border, but it has that kind of like Adriatic kind of Mediterranean sea kind of characteristics to it. But this one tends to be a little more almondy, a little bit more green almondy, bitter almond, a little bit more yellow flowers. It's a fun wine. It's the flagship wine of Massican, and it surprises a lot of people when they taste it.
This is the third time we featured this wine, but it'll be the first time we feature more than just the Ania. This is 12.3% alcohol, which we freaking love. So good job there. Yeah, 43%. Tokai Friulano. 34% Ribolla Gialla.
You can say the last one.
And 23%, how's that pronounced? Chardonnay. Chardonnay. And this is just a terrific wine. What would you pair with this, Dan? If you had a gun held to your head.
Well, it's easy for me because we have Massican wrote a cookbook. We wrote 16 chapters of a cookbook. We were wrapping up a whole Italian pantry. So all the things you want, like, being a good Italian American who grew up in Brooklyn, I had all the things that are in this book and in this pantry are things that I grew up in my daily life. So, but the funny thing, or the most interesting thing I should say about Tokai Friulano and Ribolla Gialla and Ania, because it's this northeastern Italian style white wine, it's very Germanic in its food culture in that region. So Alto Adige and Friuli, being on the borders of Austria and Slovenia, they tend to have a little bit more of a heartier dishes. They eat a lot of veal. They'll eat a lot of pork. They'll eat a lot of hard cheeses, and it is and one of their most prized. Friulano foods is prosciutto San Daniele. So kind of like cured meats, and then have that with some cheeses. But I love Massican. There's the two main dishes of Friuli are goulash, so like a stew, like a beef stew or a veal stew, and frico, which is like a potato pancake with cheese. And like you do that, and like have a nice little fried potato pancake with cheese, a little prosciutto with a little gremolata style like relish made of parsley, and you drink some of this wine, and it's just heavenly. That's really where I want to be all the time.
What are we having for dinner tonight?
We're not having swordfish, which I was thinking of.
Well, you were thinking of swordfish, really?
Yeah, because it goes with one of the wines.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
You also mentioned, you mentioned grilled octopus, which I've never had, but now I want to. I was following your cookbook. I was following on Instagram when you were doing your cookbook. It was very fun.
Thank you. Yeah,
by the way,
the next dish is really good with will be good with swordfish as well. So swordfish, it kind of circles Sicily. It's really focused on Sicily as a kind of a fish of the Sicilian island. But with the next dish, I'm gonna be going to this dinner. We're gonna be eating like frito misto, drinking Jamina and drinking Ania. So it's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to get into that Jamina in just a moment. Welcome back to Wine Time Fridays with Shelly and Phil, episode 222 with Dan Petroski, with used to be called Massican, and now I'm pronouncing it correctly, which is Massican. Why would I not know it's Massican? Makes no
And it
sense.
was never Massicana or Massicano?
It's named after Monte Massico from Italy's region of Campania, just north of Naples, the city of Naples. That's where my family is from, and Ania is my mother, the granddaughter of the family who grew up in Monte Massico. And then Jamina, which is the next name, fanciful name. And these are fanciful names because they're not 100% any single variety, or not 75% of a single variety. Jamina is named after the ancient Roman grape Amanea gemina, which is the DNA equivalent of Greco. So this is a Greco blend, and the name ties back historically to the name ties back historically to Jamina and Greco, the DNA of the grape Greco.
Okay.
But we just opened the 2023 Jamina. Actually, I didn't spell that right in the notes. That's how weird I am. $38 from the winery. And it isn't a blue label. Why the blue label versus the white label, Dan?
Yes, great question. Good observation. So
the white label is to be really obvious.
The white label. So when I started Massican, I only wanted to make one wine. I wanted to make Ania. I wanted to make this kind of California Italian white wine blend, and I only just wanted to make one wine. So we designed against a single label type, but I also named that wine after my mom. So as we grew the program to 2 wines, 3 wines, 4 wines, 5 wines today, we kept the white label on Ania because it's just, named after my mom. It's our flagship wine. It's very angelic in its kind of like white on white front label, back label. And then we kept the blue for the other wines. And that blue is quote unquote harvested from a 1600-year-old fresco outside of Pompeii in the region of Campania, near Monte Massico, near Naples. And that blue is recorded in the Harvard Library of Pigment as Massican blue. So it's nice to have, this beautiful, pristine, angelic white label named after my mom, the flagship of the wine brand at the top of the pyramid, and then have all the rest of the wines, kind of as brothers and sisters, kind of holding on to the blue color.
I absolutely love that.
You do think out of the box a lot.
Yeah, but you kind of have to in the wine industry, especially, down in Napa. You started out the gate thinking out of the box with all of these white wines, but you kind of have to draw attention to, I guess the assumption is your juice is going to be good, but that doesn't always matter. I mean, people still need to know about you, right?
Yeah.
So once,
so
you get marketed and draw attention, and then someone says, "What is this? Oh my gosh!" And by the way, this is really good.
You tasted it?
I did taste it.
Cheers.
Cheers, Zine. Hashtag cheers, Zine. It's 60% Greco Bianco, 23% Falangina, and 17% Fiano. Shelly and Dan, we have featured Falangina 2 times on Wine Time Fridays. Episode 9, which we had Val Policello Ripasso Falangina, as well as a Falangina Irpinia Corte di Giso, which I'm guessing aren't the best Falanginas in the world, but they're hard to find. We also did that last one in episode 118 as well. So sometimes you just have trouble finding certain varietals. There is a Falangina day, and we try to honor those days whenever we can.
That's
So,
great.
yeah.
These grapes are very they grow on kind of volcanic soils. You have to remember, like we're talking about Vesuvius, and we're talking about Pompeii, and we're talking about like very volcanic southern Italy, including Sicily, all the way down. So all these very volcanic soils down there, and with active volcanoes to begin with. And so they have this very porous, very deficient soils. So these grapes tend to like be go through the evolution process of becoming more hardy, more stronger, more stringent to kind of withstand the pressures of the growing season. Not only the heat, but the winds that come from North Africa, the kind of stressful soils of being volcanic, and they create very acidic wines. So Greco is an incredibly tannic and austere and acidic grape. Falangina tends to be a very acidic grape, and then Fiano tends to have a little bit more robustness and power to it. And Fiano in this blend almost acts as like the body, the glue that brings it together. And so you have these two really acid-driven grape varieties tied together, like with the Fiano. I always joke like it's like the Big Lebowski. It ties the room together. The Fiano is like the rug, but it actually just kind of, you get two positive charges that kind of negate the massive amounts of acidity that this wine has. You really need to be eating food with this wine.
Yeah. Would it be safe to say that Fiano could be the Ringo Starr of this bottle?
You
Well, he was the glue that held the Beatles together.
You can say that for sure.
So we kind of touched on what you would pair with this. Honestly, this is very acidic, but it's such a light and crisp wine. I can see someone getting in a lot of trouble with this wine on a deck or on a boat or on a dock or in front of a fireplace.
What is the alcohol on this one?
I think it's like 12.
This is less. Yeah, 12%.
12.
The other was 12.3. This is 12. So this is very, very, very good.
So you had suggested eggplant parmesan?
Yeah,
that's why I got the swordfish, olive oil swordfish.
Yeah. So you'd be like, wow, eggplant parm and white wine? That doesn't make sense. You should be drinking some kind of, rugged red wine, but it's actually, you'd be shocked. Eggplant
because of the tomato?
Nice tomato kind of cooks out some of the acidity as well as with the eggplant. And if you're doing any breading of the eggplant, depending on your style of making eggplant parm.
Ah, nice. So I would say these could be also paired with oysters and things like that.
This one,
100%. Sure. Yeah, this is already. It has that kind of brininess that I mentioned earlier. That you get from the oysters, from the liquors of the oysters, and it's a restaurateur in San Francisco mentioned years ago that he again, his opinion, thought that Jimena was potentially California's best oyster wine.
Oh, wow. Nice. That makes sense to me. Yes.
Well, we only have Dan for a little bit. We'll take one more break. When we come back, we're going to get into the third wine, which is really exciting, and talk a little bit about our Wine Time Fridays, Charity Sips, a Toast of Good Deeds, which is Napa Green.
Napa Green. Sure. Nope.
Welcome back to Wine Time Fridays with Shelley and Phil. Dan Petroski with Massican, episode 222 on the 19th of July. I can't believe how fast the summer is going. We are opening now a Pinot Grigio 2023 from Massican, and that is $32 from the website, on the website, or at the winery. And this is 100% Pinot Grigio. Let's go ahead and pour it
before you recap.
And then I wanted to talk a little bit about, or have Dan talk a little bit about Napa Green. Dan, you have an affiliation with Napa Green, but why do you resonate so much with that particular nonprofit?
I appreciate you tying that in to your Wine Time Fridays. But Napa Green is it's Napa Valley certification program for sustainable business. Cheers. For sustainable business, sustainable wine growing, sustainable grape growing, sustainable business practices, and I resonate with it because it's truly a stewardship program to how you treat the world around you, how you treat agriculture, how you treat the earth, and which is going to allow us to continue being a great wine growing region. I'm a wine drinker first, a winemaker second, and I love the stories of the Antinoris who've been doing this for 300, 400 years. I love the stories of the French chateau that have been doing it, pre 1855 when they were classified. So hundreds and hundreds of years of great history, and the only way you can do that is if you make sure you take care of the land, so you can continue to grow grapes. And Napa Green is the most stringent certification program for viticulture anywhere in the world, and it's important that we push ourselves so that the next generation of wine growers in Napa Valley can continue to make great wines.
I know we're supposed to talk about this wine, but I just feel a segue here. This leads right into the social
wine word of the week.
Wine words of the week.
Wine words.
It's our company. I can't even say social web. Okay. Wine words of the week. Organic practices, because you have embraced the whole sustainability and organic wine growing, which is easy to do correctly. Am I right about that?
Correct.
So this is a set, organic practices are a set of farming and winemaking methods that prioritize the use of natural materials and minimize the use of synthetic chemicals, pesticides, and fertilizers. I mean, that kind of goes without saying when you say that name, organic practices. How is Massican using these organic practices?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up as well. We don't talk too much about the non-interventionist kind of philosophies of Massican, but we work with 15 different farmers, and I am not going to force a farmer to farm outside of their means, but I will pay extra for organic practices, the things that you described, Phil. And but not all of our wines, Gemina, the three grapes in Gemina are all 100% organically farmed. The Pinot Grigio and there's Cortese blended into that Pinot Grigio, just a little bit, 12%, which is organically farmed.
Yes.
The Ribolla Gialla and the Tokai and the old vine Tokai it's dry farm, doesn't even get farmed. It just gets pruned. And then you have the Ribolla Gialla, which is certified organic. So we try to be as thoughtful to the vines and what they need from Mother Earth. And I work with the farmers to the best of my ability to make sure that we are evolving. We can't do anything overnight. You can't, cut off your nose to spite your face overnight. Massican works with 33% of all the Tokai and Ribolla in the state of California. If someone's not organically certified, I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm going to work with that farmer to the best of my ability to continue making great wines. And then on the inside,
you can massage that farmer a little bit to the benefits of going that way, right?
And it comes with cash, I work, one of my biggest farmers, one of my biggest growers is a viticulturist in Sonoma County. And we went through the process of converting his vineyard to organics, and he recorded every step of the way, and he recorded how much money, and then we divided it by how many tons, and we came up with a number, and I paid him, $275 extra per ton, because he farmed in a more sustainable way, and he loves it. He loves the extra money, but he also lives on the property, and he's like, I feel so much healthier now. That's surrounding myself with 6 acres of grapes that I'm treating in a manner that I can, I'm breathing in every day. So as opposed to using some synthetic practice that might be leaching into his wells that he uses for water for his his pasta.
Exactly.
So even if you're filtering, you're still going to have issues. But it's to each his own. I think we have to live by our own beliefs and our dogmas and our religions, and we have to not try to force anyone to do anything they don't want to do, but do our best.
The Falangina, you said, is 100% dry farmed?
Tokai Fiorano in
sorry.
the old vine, the Nicolenes.
So seems like a couple 3 weeks ago, Napa had some sweltering heats, close to 115 degrees, give or take. Yeah,
it's been going on for over 10 days. It's still to this day, right now, outside this window, it's 109 degrees.
but
Oh my gosh.
very soon that's going to be going down into some decent temps.
Hopefully.
I understand.
It's gonna be normal. It's gonna be normal in like a couple of days.
Well, my question is, when it's that warm and you're counting, I mean, those roots have got to go down pretty deep, yeah?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because if they're not getting their water, they're going to go find it, and hopefully it's there somewhere. We're about 90 degrees outside our window. But
yeah. No, I mean vineyards. You have to remember they act like weeds. They're very resilient. They can withstand no water. They can withstand heat. They're very, very kind of the plants that do the same thing every year. And droughts like this and heat waves like this. This is experiences that the vines are taking in and absorbing and relating to in the future. So I always talk about, why does old vines taste so magically complex and nuanced and interesting and delicious? It's because old vines have gone through all the maladies and calamities of Mother Nature for the course of the life of their wine. And I work with old vines, 78-year-old vines in Nicolini Vineyard, and I also work with 17-year-old vines, and then I work with 4-year-old vines. And there's just such a much more diverse characteristic in the older vines because they have been through the heat waves. They've been through the earthquakes and the wildfires. They've been through the problems. And just like we as adults are a lot more interesting than a teenager. And no offense to teenagers, there's some really wonderful kids out there, but we've had more experiences. So we're we've gotten our hearts broken, we've gotten our noses broken, we've gotten all the things. And so it's
don't try to tell them that. Yeah.
No, exactly. And so long story short, grapevines are like weeds. They are super resilient, and we just have to be mindful of them.
Yeah, for sure. Shelley?
Yes, what?
You turned your notes over. I thought you were ready to ask a question.
Not yet.
Okay. We're going to take one last break, and when we come back, we're going to finish off with a wine where you don't even have to say the whole name of the grape. It's just one word.
Oh, the grape, I'm getting a little bit of effervescence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I bottled the wines very, very early. I want to have a little bit of, dissolved oxygen or CO2 from fermentation process. It allows the wine to be lifted on your palate and bright. I don't do anything to manipulate my wines. I tend to be very basic in my winemaking philosophy and practices. And sometimes you'll see that there's a little bit of captured, what I like to say, CO2 or in the wine. More so, like over time, that'll break down as it comes together with it
was delightful, though.
It's very delightful. Yeah. We are in this house. If we were to pick a white wine that we don't drink a lot of, it's a Pinot Grigio or Pinot Gris. Not because we don't think that there are good ones out there, but because there are so few good ones, we don't want to try to find them. I think is what it amounts.
Usually a little too sweet.
Yeah, a little sweet, but this is, and I knew this was going to be good. I knew it, and I love that. We will be having this tonight, I'm pretty sure. All of these wines, I have written in the notes, are great for summer. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say porch pounder because those are taboo words, even though they do have a place. They're really, I mean, the rule proves the exception or vice versa. However, also perfect for the upcoming Wine and Cheese Day.
Oh, yeah.
That was the exclamation point. Wine and Cheese Day is coming up in, you just real quick go through what's coming up. July 25th, International Wine and Cheese Day, blah, blah, blah.
Blah, blah, blah. Coming up. Let's see. Where does it even say?
Well, I'll just say it. July 25th. August for International Albarino Day, and the August 1st through 5th is Albarino Week. Did I not put it on your?
No.
Maybe I didn't. There you go. Which we're going to actually have a couple of Albarinos next week, which will be kind of fun. We love Albarinos. The 4th National White Wine Day, 13th International Prosecco Day. We also have the 2nd Washington Wine Month coming up in August. And keep an eye out for the 3 fat guys as we continue our series from games to grapes. Dan, you should know the 3 fat guys. They're from your neck of the woods, right?
I don't know them.
Really? So the 3 guys that played for the Green Bay Packers, they retired and they started a winery. Go figure. Yeah. So
where are they? Where are they? They're here in Napa and Sonoma?
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah, look them
You'll
up.
have to go find them.
Tony Mall is one of the fat guys that we'll have on. This is a 2023 Sauvignon Blanc, $32 on the website and at the winery. We're gonna, we can touch it up.
Okay.
Hashtag cheersing.
Cheers. Cheers.
Dan. Oh my gosh. Sorry. You guys ship to all but what states?
We ship pretty much everywhere except for, I think, Utah, Mississippi, and weirdly, New Jersey.
New Jersey is just stupid.
It's just, no, it's how my partners, the Gallo family, they have a distribution company in New Jersey. So it's, I think we can't do both. I think you can choose one or the other. So it's so that's the only negative, and I think that might be the compliance. But no, this is I asked you to taste this one last in the lineup because, as I described earlier, I think of the first 3 Italian blended wines as Ania being horizontal, Gemina being very vertical, really kind of comes into your palate, takes off, and then the Pinot Grigio being very circular, round. It has this nice kind of openness, that effervescence, that CO2, like kind of opens it up on your palate. And then, but the Sauvignon Blanc is just so incredibly powerful and so pungent, and it's so heavy, but it's not heavy in alcohol. It's only 12.9 or 13%. It's right down there. But it still has this really intensity to it that I think most people would think you start with Pinot Grigio or Sauvignon Blanc. I want to end with those wines because I want to show their versatility. And this is I mentioned earlier someone called Gemina possibly California's best oyster wine. I will say about Massican Sauvignon Blanc, it's possibly California's best Sauvignon Blanc, and I'm not going to say that just because I make the wine. I'm going to say that because I think it truly is. I mean, it's a stunner of a wine.
It is really good.
It is, and I feel like it leans more towards Australia.
Yeah,
it has It does. And the reason why I think it's so fascinating is because it has that Southern Hemisphere, that kind of grapefruit pithiness. It has a little bit of herbaceousness. It has a little bit of like the stoniness of Sancerre. It doesn't really have the super tropics of a sunshine filled California Sauvignon Blanc. There's a lot of great Sauvignon Blancs here, don't get me wrong, but for quality price ratio, I don't really find a Sauvignon Blanc that matches this in California.
And this one is
$32.
Yeah,
So I'm
really
gonna.
good.
I am blown away by the depth of this and the balance. You can have depth, but if it's just one thing that's dragging you down there, but this has got multiple layers. When you brought up herbaceous, I'm like, yes. But to Shelley's point, this reminds me of a Sauvignon Blanc from New Zealand and South Africa, but there's just this a little bit more. It's got it's touching on those profiles without being quite as tart, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. So it's a very fortunate work with some great vineyards and. Go after a really fun style. I think a lot of people are afraid that Sauvignon Blanc will be a little too green if you pick it early and you make a 12 to 13% alcohol Sauvignon Blanc in California, because it'll ripen very quickly here. But I think it's just it loves the heat. and it burns off all the pyrazines, especially the vineyards I'm working with. So I'm really fortunate, but I think it feels, that wine just feels good to me. It feels really good.
Sensational. So if for you watching on YouTube, I'm going to point out these wines as 12.3, 12%, 12.1, and 12.9, all below 13%, all on the sweet spot of 12%. When in general, because I know it's all driven or heat driven or ripeness driven, when do you generally harvest these wines, these grapes?
Sure. So we'll start with Sauvignon Blanc is probably the earliest ripening grape variety that I work with, and it is the one vineyard I was in yesterday in Pope Valley, Juliana Vineyard, which is about 40% of the blend of that wine. I was looking at my historical notes. I was thinking this year is acting a little bit like 2016, although this heat wave has really pushed us to a level. We actually kind of saw this heat wave in mid to end of July in 2016 as well, and then it got really cold in August. But even then, it was a year that I harvested Sauvignon Blanc around August 10th. So that would be 3.5, 4 weeks from now. I'm a little apprehensive to say we're 4 weeks away based on where the vineyard is right now. I mean, I think we're a couple of weeks away from a week to 10 days away from veraison, when the grapes start to turn, and then you need a couple of weeks of just sugar ripening. But yeah, I would say somewhere around the 10th, 15th for Sauvignon Blanc. Pinot Grigio will come in a little after that. We'll start to see the Pinot Grigio come in, and third week, the fourth week of August. I will harvest a little bit of Chardonnay depending on the season by the end of August, early September, and then the Tokai and the Ribolla. Those are grapes. But then the Falangina and the Cortese, early September. Tokai, Ribolla, early to mid September. I'll be done by the 30th of September. So it's about a 6-week process from the first grapes to the last grapes. At least the way I'm targeting in my head this year.
Well,
it's nice that they're a bit spread out, though.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And I also asked that for a reason, because all of those red grape growers, they're a little bit later, and they're all battling for people to help pick and harvest. And here's Dan Petroski with Massican. Like, you guys fight for labors, in late September, October. We've got all ours picked, and they're fermenting,
ready to go.
So it doesn't suck.
We won't wrap up, but I wanted to ask you what's going on with Massican and the metaverse. Are you still working on that?
Yeah. So I think, Phil, you said it earlier, that the wine industry wasn't ready for NFTs, and so Shelley, this goes into my answer to you. I don't think any industry was ready for NFTs, not just the wine industry. But I have this wonderful vision. I try to make myself as accessible as possible to anyone and everyone. And I answer all the emails. I ask for patience sometimes for me getting back to it, but I try to be as open and available. And where I see the metaverse as an opportunity is, with these large language models of putting all the information regarding a brand like Massican into it, with the ability to record, like how many podcasts I've been on, I can record my voice so that you can actually then create an avatar of yourself, and with all the information about Massican, with all the perfect food and wine pairings, all the chemistry data, if you want to get crazy and ask me about like titratable acidity and all that other stuff. And then that would just be, and the metaverse never closes, right? There are no holidays in the metaverse. Yeah. So, if we're celebrating,
they don't want vacations, days off.
No, we're not going to be in a kind of in a metaverse bar on 4th of July, but the Britons, they're not celebrating 4th of July, so that it's open for them. So I just think it's like 365, 7 days a week, no time zone differentiations. Here, we have to drink wine between a certain time, right? We drink it after work at 5 to 10 p.m. Or, if you're traveling on vacation, you drink it when you drink it. but it's like this just gives everybody the opportunity to kind of be available and have Massican available to them, or have a
So you'll have
winemaker talk to them on a regular on a regular conversation.
doppelganger.
A doppelganger. So use the AI Auphonic. I'll give you that link. Because we have the podcast, I was able to import all, hours and hours of my voice without anything else, because I do the sponsorship spots. And so it was able to create AI voice of myself, right? I don't necessarily use it, but when I was out of town, I may need to have a sponsorship spot. I was able to write it and then use my voice. So
Love it.
In your case, when you create that doppelganger, and AI is blowing everything out of the water with the great things you can do. I love the fact that you've been so far ahead of the curve on this. So thank you for that.
And there is NFT on the site.
Yeah. So Turtle Rock also Paso is very much that way as well with the NFTs. So you have yours on your site as well.
Yeah, I started, we haven't turned it back on quite yet, but what I did with the 2022 vintage was like, look, you buy Massican wines, especially let's use the perfect example today. I got an order for a gift for someone today. And unfortunately, because of the way we treat shipping wine in the summer, we aggregate the volume, put it on a refrigerated truck to get it to the East Coast. And it takes a little bit of time. There's patience there, right? Well, it kind of fucking sucks that you order something and it doesn't arrive for like 2.5 weeks, right?
Or longer. Yeah.
So I don't think people understand the immediate, gap you have there is that, oh, I forgot that wine is a food product. It's a beverage. It is, it's perishable. And so extreme heat or extreme cold. So I was like, well, even in the perfect environment, you're not going to get the wine tomorrow like an Amazon order. So I wanted to give you something. I wanted to give you a artistic version of the label that was created by an artist who happened to be a really popular NFT artist. So if you had a crypto wallet, you buy the wines, you were eligible to go to the website and mint your own art labels of Massican as an NFT. And I was like, so I gave you something immediately as a thank you for your purchase. And
that's a one of a kind.
And that's one of a kind. We did an editions of 1,000. But honestly, there wasn't a lot of people who had crypto wallets on the Massican going to the Massican website. So it wasn't something that was
hanging out. Yeah,
wasn't crazy. It wasn't crazy. Crazy successful in that way, and that's fine. And I always said the metaverse and NFTs and the blockchain, it's a 2030 idea. It's not a 2024 idea. We have another half a decade, another 5 or 6 years to kind of really, for just all consumers, right? And and I think we did a really bad job of introducing what the blockchain is and what crypto wallets are to the world. It's as opposed to just like relating it to simple things like it's no different than a credit card. Like your credit card takes money from one place and puts it to another place, records the transaction for you, and you can find it. Like I went to the American Express website. I was flying out to, I can't remember where the hell I was flying. Oh, I was flying out of Santa Rosa, the Snoopy airport, the Charles Schultz airport. And I'm like, they never sent me a confirmation. On my American Express bill on the website, I clicked through more details. They had my confirmation code and my flight schedule.
Right.
Like, that's like the blockchain, So like we have to do better. We have to do better at communicating in a more relatable manner. And this is not a problem for the for internet and blockchain forever. This is also a wine problem. The wine industry tends to over talk about itself and why it's so special, and why its dirt is so special, and why its microclimate is so special, and why its winemaker is a god, and like all those things are things that are just like people don't wake up in the morning thinking about Massican. I do, but most people don't.
But that's because it's your passion. It's in your heart. It's under your fingernails. But you're right. People aren't going to.
No. Yeah, they're not going to wake up in the morning and think about my brand. So I just try to make my brand more accessible. We're trying to keep the prices static for the next 10 years. We're trying to make more wine. We're trying to write editorials and do cookbooks and make playlists and give you recommendations for movies. We're trying to bring things that you love to do. How do you want to do those things with a glass of wine? A glass of white wine, a glass of Massican. And so you want to read, you want to watch movies, you want to listen to music, you want to go to art shows. That's all the things that make us excited about being part of your lives. And the wine is the vehicle for us to get there.
Yep, the Dolce Vita.
The Dolce Vita.
Dolce Vita.
So very, very true. Although two little things. I know we have about 2 minutes left. So I wanted to ask you: do you know of the grape Timorasso or Caracante?
Yep. Yes, Timorasso it's an old grape variety from Italy's northwest Piemonte region. It's got a massive resurgence of popularity amongst the Piemontese winemakers. There's only a very small amount of acreage in Piemonte right now, so it's again everyone's talking about it. It's making its way audibly. And then Caracante is Italy, southern Italy, Sicily's Mount Etna white wine. It is it's probably one of the greatest. I think one of the top 10 white wine grapes of Italy. And it's the grape that I drank the most of probably when I was living in Sicily.
Either of those grapes that you can grow there in Napa?
Yeah, a lot of people are thinking about Caracante because of its similarities to Sicily being very Mediterranean. It's a hillside grape. It's a mountain grape. It's a volcanic grape. We can do things. There's places that we can kind of take advantage of here in Napa Valley. The only negative is just the land values are too high. The pricing for grapes is too high. The farming costs are too high. You'd be making a white wine that's going to cost just $50, $60, $75 if you start planting this up in the hills of Atlas Peak or something. The world's not ready to buy Napa Valley Tokai Fiorano at $75 a bottle or Caracante at $75 a bottle. We're just not ready. The world's just not ready for that. I don't think we should force that on anyone. So it's a sad episode,
and then they're going to be ready.
Yeah, I hope so. Okay. But my hope is for you to be able to buy at least 2 of my wines for $75.
Exactly. We're about to wrap up. I wanted to mention this because daughter and son-in-law were here visiting, and we had a number of Italian wines that they had shipped over when they visited Italy. The Giovanna Tantini Bartolino Chiarito 2022. Oh yeah, we have the Savia Malbec as a Walla wine. The Castello Finotto Brunello di Montalcino, and then we have the Marseillais Silver Chardonnay. And we've also had the Celestino Pecci Brunello di Montalcino. That was 2017. All those were fantastic. A huge thanks to today's sponsors, J. Bookwalter Wines, Coeur d'Alene Fresh, Terraza Waterfront Grill, but an even bigger thanks to Dan Petroski, I pronounced his name right, of Massican. Thank you so very much. I'm not going to speak for Shelley, but I know that we both love what you're doing. And when
all of the things,
really, seriously, we were a little sad when we heard Gallo bought you, but it sounds like they're letting you do your thing, which good for Gallo. And of course, that helps having those resources there as well. So thank you so much for being here today. We did go 2 minutes over, so I apologize for that.
No, my pleasure. Thank you guys. Happy Friday. Enjoy your evening with the kids and keep drinking well.
A little bit of knowledge, one becomes a lot less overwhelming. Thank you for listening. Next week, some Albariños.
Thank you for spending part of your day to wind down with Shelley and Phil. Remember, you can listen to any episode of the Wine Time Fridays podcast by visiting winetimefridays.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And join us on our Wine Time Fridays Facebook page, Instagram, or on Twitter, which is @VintageTweets for daily conversation. Until next week, here's our toast to you, to health, wealth, abundance, gratitude, peace on earth, and of course, romance.